Please have a seat, because we are going to start the next session at the Innovation Forum dedicated to the pre-normative research for standardization. My name is Alberto Garcia. I'm Project Officer at the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, or Clean Hydrogen EU, and together with my colleague Luis Mazurkiewicz from the Hydrogen Europe Research, and the next three speakers, we are going to have a discussion on the role of pre-normative research, how important is this kind of activities for the rollout of these technologies in the years to come. In that sense, I would like just to stress that the implementation of suitable and enabled frameworks are essential for the rollout of these technologies in the years to come. And indeed, the European Union, particularly the Commission, it's working on it. As you remember, in 2020, the Commission released the overarching strategy, let's say the European Hydrogen Strategy, which is complemented or framed by several policy packages, let's say, like the Fit for 55, Repower EU, or the Green Deal Industrial Plan, no? And these policies, let's say, are implemented by the different pieces of legislation, like, for example, the Net Zero Industry Act or the Critical Raw Material Act, which just to name but a few, no? On the other hand, the Commission is also supporting the establishment of this regulatory framework through different mechanisms. For example, the hydrogen bank is one of the tools that the Commission is putting in motion to foster the establishment of these technologies, and as well supporting public-private partnerships like in the hydrogen, like the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, in which we work all. Just from the EU, just to highlight that we are supporting the establishment of this regulatory framework from 4 different angles. One angle is through projects or action grants. We do support projects, consortium entities performing pre-normative research activities mainly to provide inputs for the standardization development organizations or to provide inputs for the regulatory documents. We also have a set of activities with the JRC, thanks to the framework contract that we have with the Joint Research Center. We will get back in a minute. We also have a working group working specifically on regulation codes and standards, composed of Hydrogen Euro Research, and the Commission, in which we try to coordinate how the JU, the partnership, contributes to these activities. And last but not least, I think it's also worth to mention the activity that we have in knowledge management concerning the observatory, in which we have a specific module on standards and policies for everyone to check what are the relevant policies or relevant standards for the different applications or systems. In that sense, just to highlight that most of the projects performing pre-normative research are concentrated in the so-called cross-cutting issues area, in which we have supported for the time being 54 projects for a little bit more of 80.1 million. In terms of pre-normative research, we've been supporting 30 projects so far, with a total funding of almost 55 million and involving 21 countries from Europe and beyond. No? We've been supporting projects performing pre-normative research activities. We've been supporting also projects in order to assess the legal and administrative processes in order to detect the barriers and how to overcome them. I think high law is a very good reference. And also, another cross-cutting issues in this category is the Certified project, which I guess everybody knows, which was the pioneer. It was the first project ever worldwide looking at putting in place a guarantees of origin scheme in Europe. No? The majority of the activities are focused on pre-normative research, because we believe that pre-normative research is one of the essential aspects that from this Clean Hydrogen EU partnership on this program we can really make, with which we can really make an impact. No? In that sense, we are supporting projects along the hydrogen chain. For example, we have the ELVIS projects on liquid hydrogen, particularly on safety aspects. We have the multi-fuel on refueling stations with different or combining different fuels. We have several projects on natural gas and the hydrogen blends, on hydrogen quality, and also on maritime applications. No? As I mentioned, altogether, these are the projects, the logos you can see here, of the 30 projects. Altogether, they are providing inputs, they are supporting the development of a suitable and hydrogen-specific regulatory framework. No? And more importantly, they are providing inputs. All the outcomes of this research, all the outcomes of the taxpayers' money used in this type of projects are focusing on specific standards. And just to give you an idea, from the projects that are running right now, 60% are focusing on providing inputs, improving standards at the cell level, at the European level, while roughly 40% it's improving, providing inputs at the ISO level. No? As I said, beyond the projects, which is the main tool, let's say, or the core business of the partnership, we have a set of activities with the Joint Research Center. I will not, today we have one speaker from the Joint Research Center. I will not spend much time, but they are really helping us to develop different harmonized testing protocols, but also in terms of the strategy. Very useful cooperation. I'm looking forward to the discussion with Pietro Moretto later on. As I mentioned, we also have a group of experts with a working group or task force composed of Hydrogen Europe, Hydrogen Euro Research Commission, and the Program Office representatives. We are all working on trying to coordinate better how we address the pre-normative research aspects and the standardization and regulation codes and standard in the partnership. We have several activities, but maybe the most relevant is the ones that are in red, which is the work group is basically focusing on the identification of what is needed, what is really needed to have better standards, better regulations in Europe, and as well we try to increase the way the JU is managing the portfolio of projects to make a bigger impact, because we are impact-driven in that sense. No? And last, as I mentioned, I wanted to mention the Hydrogen Observatory, which is the repository that the Clean Hydrogen JU has online, available for everyone, with a lot of information about the market, but also with a specific module on the policies and the standards relevant to the technologies and applications. And this information is for everyone to get the most of it, and I think it's quite relevant as well as a way to support, let's say, and sharing information with the sector. No? That's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to call to the stage to my colleague Luis Mazurkiewicz, Innovation Manager at the Hydrogen Euro Research, who is going to, let's say, moderate the Q&A session. Thank you very much, and Luis, welcome. Thank you for being here, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alberto. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this talk on pre-normative research for standardization. Without further ado, I'm going to welcome our three speakers for today, starting with Pietro Moretto, Head of Unit at the Joint Research Center of the European Commission. I'll follow up with Annarita Baldan from VSL, so the Dutch Metrology Institute. She's also the chair of the Yemen Energy Gases at EURAMET, so the European Metrology Association. And finally, a warm welcome to Nils Røkke, who's the Executive Vice President Sustainability at SINTEF from Norway. SINTEF is actually a member of Hydrogen Europe Research, one of our founding members. Welcome. I'll start off with a brief introduction of all our speakers. I'll give the floor to each one of them, starting with you, Pietro.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. I'm working for the Joint Research Center, which is European Commission. And basically what we are doing since many, many years is science for policy. So we are doing research, we are doing science, but with a particularly targeted purpose towards policy of the European Commission. And in this sense, you can imagine that a big part of our program is on pre-normative research. So a couple of points on what we are doing. One of the major driver, the major method that we are adopting at the Joint Research Center for the relationship between science, standards, and policy is a program that is called Putting Science into Standards. And I was there when we started the first of this initiative that was dedicated to hydrogen many, many years ago. We invited stakeholders from industry. We invited, obviously, the European standardization bodies. And from this first initiative inside the JRC, Joint Research Center, we moved to the Sensenelec. I will use a lot of acronyms, but I assume that you know what are Sensenelec. And in the frame of Sensenelec, led by the people of Sensenelec, together with the industrial standard, industrial responsible for standards, we created the first hydrogen roadmap. It's about identifying gaps, is identifying the priority in these gaps, and then starting doing the job. And it is pre-normative research and standard. So the first message that I'd like to give to you is that is a circularity, is science, is pre-normative research, and then going to a standard that maybe will not be the best standard of the world, requiring additional improvement, and you're going back to science and pre-normative. And obviously everything has also to do with technical and technological regulation and directives. So this is the first message. Pre-normative research is a lot of fun. If you think, very often people when begin to hear about standardization, are they thinking about boring? Well, if you do standardization wrong, you kill innovation and you kill deployment in the market. If you do it properly, you are enabling it. The same thing can be said for pre-normative research. So this was the first message. The second thing that I wanted to tell you is something that Alberto has hinted at, and it is more related to the present situation. There are a lot of different testing protocols, testing procedure that have not yet done their work up to a standard. And we at the Joint Research Center, we are trying to harmonize them so that to offer a kind of a package to industry research groups to use the same way to assess the same thing so that you can compare performance, you can compare safety, you can compare sustainability in the same methodology. It's good for program analysis, it's good also for progress technology. This is what we call the harmonized standard. It's not compulsory, it's available to everyone. I think that is the second message, and I stop here because otherwise I monopolize in the whole group.
Thank you very much, Pietro. I give you the floor now, Annarita.
Thank you, Louis, and good morning, everyone. Annarita Baldan, Chief Scientist at VSL, the National Metrology Institute of the Netherlands, but moreover, I am the chair of the European Metrology Network for Energy Gases under EURAMET. EURAMET is the associations of European National Metrology Institutes. Nothing to do with meteorology. Don't worry, we don't do weather forecasting, but we provide science expertise to where accurate and comparable measurements are needed. And obviously for hydrogen, this is a key priority. Within our network, we cover conventional and sustainable gases, so hydrogen, again, is very important. And we do it also together with the key partners in the hydrogen community. So for us, working with the private partners of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, Hydrogen Europe and Hydrogen Europe Research is very important because it allows us to identify what are the measurement needs, prioritize them and address them into research. EURAMET manages also a partnership, a co-funded partnership called European Partnership on Metrology. And under this program, we cover the grand challenges, so the Green Deal, but also standardization. And it is under this flag that we have, in the past and the new program, 9 projects on hydrogen, which are delivering inputs to standardization in different committees, technical committees, and working groups which are dealing with measurements for hydrogen. In addition, what I want to say is that pre-normative research is fundamental for standardization. It allows to provide science-based evidence to standards, technical standards, product specifications, as my colleague Pietro said, and allows harmonization and the comparability of products. I think I will also stop here and give the floor to the next.
Thank you, Annarita. Now on to you, Nils. The floor is yours.
So, thank you. Pleasure seeing you all here. I would like to spend 10 seconds on SINTEF. We are a research institute based in Norway, 2,200 people, not all working on hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives, but still we have maybe about 150 to 200 people working in this area and doing a lot of this pre-normative research. So I would say overall, pre-normative research is a foundational element actually in creating robust, effective and forward-looking regulations, codes and standards for hydrogen technologies. It also ensures that these frameworks are scientifically sound, risk-informed and capable of supporting the safe and efficient use of hydrogen as a clean energy carrier. So these you can structure a bit, and I've done that, trying to do that, as Pietro did also with his 1, 2, 3 messages. The evidence-based standards, so PNR, provides the scientific and technical data necessary to develop standards that are based on solid evidence. Risk-informed regulations, by understanding the potential risks associated with hydrogen technologies through PNR, regulations can be designed to mitigate these risks effectively. This leads to safer implementation and operation of hydrogen systems. And then the feedback loop, innovation and improvement, how we can improve standards when we see that they're not fit for the purpose anymore by research which is undertaking. And this also goes into the global space, of course, for the global standardization and how PNR supports the development of international global standards, essential for having a liquid market for hydrogen in the future. And some examples, I mean, SINTEF has been working with hydrogen fuel quality assessment since 2009. And from 2014 and up to date, projects on these topics, I mean, you know all the abbreviations in the hydrogen program, HyCora, Hydrite, and High Quality Europe, and also on the metrology side, Metro Hy-V 1 and 2 and Met Hydrux. So hydrogen fuel quality was standardized in 1999 with the release of the ISO 14687. However, this standard did not cover fuel cell application, thus revision was needed for a more strict fuel specification. Initial fuel tolerance limits was very strict, and the scientific output from projects like HyCora and Hydrite led to relaxation of tolerance for formaldehyde, removal of formic acid, and redefinition of the budget for halogenated species. So this means that you get more efficient systems and the way of expanding on the hydrogen area. I could go on, but I guess I've used up my time, have I, Louise? Or
I think we've got more than enough time again for the discussion, so I think it's...
I've got one more example.
Go for it. Go for it.
If you allow. An emerging topic for fuel cells and water electrolysis is the future possible ban of perfluorinated materials. And durability studies has focused on fluoride release as a degradation metrics. Early work by SINTEF and other research institutes has shown that a considerable part of the fluorine is released as organofluorides, often reported as total fluorine emissions. It's clear that some of these organofluorides are classified as PFAS. Thus, further research is required to conduct representative sampling and analysis of fuel cells and water electrolysis systems to evaluate the PFAS emission potential. That's also showing how research is needed to develop these standards and regulations and codes and so forth in a forward-looking topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Nils. I think we can start with a few questions. I'll start with one related to the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, because as we've mentioned, partnership supports activities on pre-normative research within the cross-cutting activity area that Alberto mentioned. And we often talk about synergies between partnerships or associations. It's a bit of a buzzword sometimes, you don't really know what it means, but in this case, for some, in the case that Annarita mentioned between the Clean Hydrogen Partnership and the Metrology Partnership, it's actually a very efficient collaboration that we have where we can identify some research ideas that could then be covered by either one of the partnership. So I'll start off with you, Annarita, on this, asking you, how could you see that these synergies, this cooperation could be maximized? And in your view, would you see other funding instruments as well that could be considered to harness or improve synergies between partnerships?
Thank you. Yes, it's very important that synergies are in place to make sure that the funding programs for pre-normative research, for standardization, but also research in general, is efficient and that there is no redundancy in the work done. Of course, Clean Hydrogen Partnership and the European Partnership on Metrology are the main major funding tools for pre-normative research in hydrogen. We are, in order to assure that these synergies are in place, we are present at the stakeholder group of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. And we have this, again, memorandum of understanding with the private partners, Clean Hydrogen Europe and Hydrogen Europe Research. This ensures that there is complementarity in the research programs, that there is an exchange of knowledge between the projects, and that the outputs are really feeding into the right place. Therefore, in standardization, I want to give you an example. We have a lot of work ongoing on hydrogen transport and distribution. So there was a project called New GasMet, which was looking, and Meta Infra, which were looking at gas metering for applications for the transmission and the distribution networks, but also for domestic gas meters. So hydrogen obviously has completely different physical and chemical properties than other gases, other energy gases. So the question is, are the meters, gas meters, now in place able to operate with the right accuracy for also hydrogen or hydrogen-enriched natural gas? So this project started this work, and actually we, together with the Clean Hydrogen Partnership and the Metrology Partnerships, we have now new projects which builds up on the knowledge which started in New Gas and Meta Infra. So we have now the TO2 projects and the Met for Hydrogen projects. In addition, standardization at European level is really asking for this work. It's important for them to have science, as I said before, science-based evidence that this use of manufacture of metering system is really accurate. It is for harmonization, for accuracy, and obviously for fair billing. So I support these synergies, and actually more synergies should be in place also with other funding programs.
Annarita, indeed, these synergies we do have between the Clean Hydrogen Partnership and the Metrology Partnership are probably one of the better examples that we have, and that we should inspire ourselves on, I would say. I'll go back to you, Nils, on a question on the role of pre-normative research in the context of the implementation of suitable regulatory or enabling frameworks for hydrogen technologies. How do you see this role? And even if we extend the question, how do you see the role of research centers or even the research community overall in this context?
So I think it's really important that the research community is embedded all the way when you develop these kind of regulation codes and standards. And I think it's also very important that they're allowed to be part of that process. As we know, there are differences in the different standardization bodies around Europe in terms of how you can get access to the working groups. Some you will actually need to pay to be part of the group creating the standards. That may change. I mean, we know there has been some legal judgments on that, on the opening of standards and so forth. And I think that will call for more integration of the pre-normative research into the development of these standards. And I think it's really important that we then, I mean, it's very important that we have the mechanisms which Alberto was looking to, you know, all the different mechanisms we have to support this, but that we also manage to link this up to each of the member states and associated countries' activities. so we can harvest all the activities which is going on in Europe as a common knowledge into these development. And usually there is a factor of 1 to 15 or something in terms of what is done by member states and associated country compared to what is done at the pan-European level. And just think about how that can be leveraged into this development. I think there's a great value to be harvested there.
Thank you, Nils. At the moment, the discussion, we are focusing more on Europe, but it's true that if we just turn around, we can see delegations from Japan, Algeria, India, so hydrogen is global, and in this context, that's a question for you, Pietro. We were wondering what the challenges and opportunities could be for fostering international collaboration for research and standardization, and how that we can ensure that these global standards can be harmonized and that the research is not duplicated.
Thank you. There are different initiatives that are ongoing at the moment, not always completely aligned and not always calibrated to each other. But first, let me say why we have to have, in many different cases, a better standardization framework at the global level than at macro region or individual country level. Is because let's start from the taxonomy. Standardization and pre-normative are just simply a very generic term, but we are speaking of standardization and pre-normative to guarantee interoperability between systems. Click and go instead of developing every time a different interface. We are speaking of guaranteeing minimum level of safety acceptable for the society and the population. And we are also speaking about how to measure in the proper way performance. Both Annarita and Nils mentioned an important thing that is probably the most challenges, how to catch degradation and lifetime durability. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of discussion. Standards is also a matter of achieving consensus via compromise. So it's much better to do it once, altogether, globally, than having to starting bottom up, and then you have already fixed ideas, and these ideas cannot be changed anymore. So this is definitively the driver for having a global approach from the point of view of this dimension that I just mentioned: safety, interoperability, performance assessment. And we have different elements that are working together. Definitively, the international standardization bodies are a driver, but this is already only at the level of standardization. We have a mission innovation, which is an initiative in R&I, in the research and innovation and development area, that is putting together a certain amount of a global player. We have the international partnership of hydrogen in the economy, which is meeting in the same city today, but on the other side of the city. I don't know if this is a message or not. They could have probably been much near here to give the signal. They have a regulation and code and standard and a safety group that is aiming to identify what is available in the different countries and where we can harmonize it. There are also a lot of initiatives at more governmental level, like the Clean Energy Ministerial, who has also a dimension of hydrogen. And I can mention more and more. Which is the difficulty here? The difficulty is that in certain aspects of the technologies, games has already been decided, and a posteriori to change an harmonized approach, to achieve an harmonized approach is much more difficult. Since the beginning of the idea of having an hydrogen economy and putting hydrogen into the society, we tried to anticipate the need. But nevertheless, hydrogen is a fuel, hydrogen is a feedstock, hydrogen is a processing gas. And fuels means fuels in the sense of energy production, but also in mobility. All this is already a general frame for mobility, for safety. I just simply mentioning, most of you probably are from Europe, the ATEX regulation that is indicating the rules for safety under explosive atmosphere. It's very difficult when you have already in a member state or in a macro region, something fixed to go through. So this is the challenge. we should have a much more coordinated way. What I see is every international organization is starting an activity that maybe is coordinated or not coordinated, but it doesn't seem to be perfectly. We don't have a panel above everyone that is controlling all this. United Nations has started this. There are the global technical regulations that are working on a specific technical regulation that then have to be adopted by the individual member states. So everything is still a little bit to be improved. Let me finish with something a little bit more, because the usual dynamic of this panel is that we always agree with each other. So let's inject something a little bit more matter for discussion. I left out in my scenario for standardization pre-normative sustainability. Sustainability is something that is much more near the policy of the individual countries. And we have in hydrogen a situation where there are countries that are developing a regulation and a standardization frame to sell hydrogen, and there are other countries or macro regions that are doing the same to buy hydrogen, and in particular to buy something that has the definition of renewable hydrogen, green hydrogen, low carbon hydrogen, low emission hydrogen. It's going to be difficult to harmonize this at global level, and it should not be, because it would be strange that the seller is dictating the rules to the buyer. In that sense, I think that the buyer should completely free to develop the condition for buying what is they called the quality of the hydrogen that they need in their country. So there are certain, my final message is, let's globalize, let's harmonize at global level as far as possible, and still some effort should be done there, but where it's not necessary, let's not try.
Thank you, Pietro. Indeed, there are many initiatives and quite a few challenges still remaining. One common thread is indeed cooperation, collaboration. I'll just go back to Nils before I come back to you, Annarita. Asking from the research center, even since SINTEF is a bit at the frontier between the research and industrial sector, since you are a big research center in Norway, how do you see the best practices in fostering this collaboration between research stakeholders, industrial stakeholders, and standardization organizations when conducting pre-normative research? And would you have any examples of successes?
Yeah, surely. I mean, I mentioned some in my introduction, actually, about some examples on how project has evolved into regulations and standards. And again, I think it's important that we work together so we get the same kind of understanding of what is the problem, and then immediately links up to the from Pietro here, you know, about his slightly controversial about different standardization and who is going to develop and to define this. I think we've seen this under mission innovation. I mean, there are different definitions of hydrogen, and they don't quite match from the American side towards European thinking about this. And I think the only way of breaking that is really to work together and to look at what is a true LCA analysis of these different value chains. It would be hard to find, you know, good ways of turning imported, long transported LNG into hydrogen in Europe with a sensible footprint. I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible, but it's really hard to do that and to show evidence-based that that is actually the case. So I think to harmonize this, really need to work together. And I think the standardization organizations, like I mentioned Standards Norway, which I'm board member of as well. I mean, they also involve into research project in Norway and can also be part of European programs, so that they know what's happening. You know, I think you know, working together is key here. I don't know if that answers your question, Liz, but
Very interesting. And bouncing on this, question for you, Annarita, on considering all this and maybe taking the metrology partnership project examples, how would you see that the results of these projects, of these pre-normative research activities, can then be better transferred into standards? Would you have any suggestions or examples of on this?
Yes, again, thank you. Before answering that, I wanted just to add up on what has been said before on the need for global standards. Obviously, from the, let's say, measurement science point of view, it is for me fundamental to have harmonized standards so that when you measure in one country, you measure the same in another country, that there is comparability of measurement results and measurement methods. Think about the automotive industry, which needs to sell their hydrogen fuel cell cars. If the standards in Europe are different from those in Japan, then we would have a big problem. So for that, I think harmonization and global standardization is key. As obviously there are some drawbacks for other situations where you have, as Pietro mentioned, sustainability, geographical and political situations in different areas of the world, so that there are different priorities, and therefore a global harmonized standard is difficult. So that was my first comment on what is said before. Within our European partnership on metrology, we have specific calls for pre-normative research for standardization. And how is this working? There is a platform called STEER, Sensenelec platform, which collects from the different technical committees and the working groups, but it's not only Sensenelec, it's also at ISO level, so at international standardization level, collects the needs from standardization. So it's really a bottom-up approach. These needs are then published in orientation paper, and there is a call for standardization, so for pre-normative research for standardization, which address those needs which are in this orientation paper. This ensures that the research is really done fit for purpose. So the outputs of this research are really feeding the standards technical committees or working groups which have been asking for this research. This is really effective. Again, I was mentioning the new GasMet project, which was looking at different gases, not only hydrogen, but use of biomethane, for instance, for domestic gas meters, how the influence of the type of gases, what is the effect on the gas meters, the durability of these gas meters. Obviously, we have also the example that Nils was mentioning on the trucks, which is about sampling at hydrogen refueling stations of hydrogen to measure then the quality of hydrogens, because again, sulfurs or carbon monoxide are really important to measure at very low trace levels, because they have an influence on the PEM fuel cells, on the automotives, on the vehicles. All this Multi-Trucks project is feeding ISO TC 197, which is dealing with standardization for sampling. So I think these are very good example, and I want to stop here.
Thank you, Annarita. To bounce back on the topic of sustainability that you introduced as a matter for discussion, Pietro, and how pre-normative research could contribute to evaluating all this. In your opinion, what is the role of life cycle assessments for this and carbon footprint studies? How do you believe that these tools can shape the creation of future standards?
Thank you. This is such a difficult question that I don't have a clear message to you. Sorry for that. We have in place a framework for life cycle assessment that is allowing to control the complexity of every system in terms of interaction with the environment. It's a methodology that has been adopted since some decades and has been becoming refined and refined. Where are the difficulties with hydrogen? As I told before, hydrogen can be considered from many different aspects. It's very diffusive hydrogen, not only in terms of molecules, but in terms of use. I repeat it, it's a process gas, it's a fuel for energy and fuel for mobility. Is a feedstock for ammonia and a derivative of ammonia. In all this complexity, it's becoming also a byproduct, for instance, in the production of chlorine, or in the production of hydrogen. There are also other byproducts. If you ever followed the high-level conference yesterday, there's been a lot of speaking about waste and hydrogen from waste. All this process require from the life cycle assessment an additional adaptation. There are many different ways to perform a life cycle assessment, and hydrogen in a different configuration doesn't give immediately the right way to do this. And you can make a lot of mistake attributing, for instance, the whole CO2 production of a certain process or to hydrogen or to byproduct. And with that, you don't have an agreed methodology and also an indication of which is the best in terms of greenhouse gas emission reduction. So I do not know where, at the moment, there are a lot of ongoing work. The International Partnership on Hydrogen in the Economy has proposed a methodology that has been adopted by the mentioned by Annarita International Standardization Organization Technical Committee 197, and there is a draft proposal for a standards. But this is not yet enough, because individual policies of the individual member states are imposing an additional strict approach. I can only speak from the European Union point of view. We have a directive that is called the Renewable Energy Directive. In this family of directive, there is a definition of renewable hydrogen, and very soon there will be also a definition of low carbon hydrogen, which will completely cut off any other possibility for life cycle assessment in specific application of hydrogen. So we have here not much as schizophrenia, but we have drivers that are coming from different directions that are not speaking to each other. I don't have a solution, but I know the problem. Over to you.
Yeah, on the topic of sustainability, a very important one, which also should flow into the standardization, I would also like to mention the leakages of hydrogen into the atmosphere, and the kind of discovery of this could be important, especially when we talk about hydrogen economy, when that's rolled out to the full extent. And I mean, this was an issue which, at least in my radar, it emerged maybe 6-7 years ago. Now there's a lot of research being performed on this. What is the effect of hydrogen as an indirect greenhouse gas, basically eating up the OH radicals, so the methane is more long-lived. And there are some numbers out there now, both for the GVP 100 and 20. But this is the kind of activities which research is providing the framework and the data, which allows us then to go into into the standards in the next stage, when we have not done enough research, so we can cap what is the typical influence on this on sustainability. And that's just one example which sprung to my mind when you mentioned this, Pietro.
Indeed. And this also actually was part of one of the recent call for proposals on of the Clean Hydrogen Partnership, but also the Horizon Europe programs. It was one topic on, indeed, the physical phenomena in the atmosphere, the different layers of the atmosphere of hydrogen releases as an indirect greenhouse gas, and also on the floor, finding engineering means to mitigate the potential hydrogen releases that could be along the hydrogen value chain. I believe it's a NIRA project, if I'm not mistaken.
NIRA, yes.
So yeah, very interesting. On this, I'll give you the opportunity as an audience to to ask any questions if you have any. See, there's a couple. Is there a microphone that could be provided? Yeah, thank you.
Hello everyone. Hello the audience. I'm Gianmarco Mirodi. I work for Friuli Venezia Giulia region. I am a technical expert in hydrogen, and I'm working on North Adriatic Hydrogen Valley, and we are transborder Hydrogen Valley. So the team is quite hot for us because we are searching for standardization because we will share 20% of our hydrogen. So for us, it's very interesting discussion, and we would like to ask which is our attention to this kind of experience. I mean, the Hydrogen Valley, the transborder Hydrogen Valley, and also when we be published the new gas, the new calculation, I mean the annex that is accidentally with me, and I would like to ask when you will come out with this document for the future. Thank you very much.
So maybe this is the question for me?
Yes, Pietro, please.
First of all, you are very much invited to engage with us because probably we have something that we are getting from the conversation with other hydrogen valleys, and we can coordinate a little bit. Specifically on the definition of low carbon, this is embedded in a package that we used to call low carbon gases. It will be a family of the piece of legislation. There will be a directive, there will be a regulation, and there will be a delegated act. And in the delegated act, exactly as we did for the Renewable Energy Directive, there will be two things. The definition of low carbon in terms of threshold of greenhouse gas emission, in terms also of the scope, and there will be probably in the same delegated act also the methodology. And I'm coming back to the life cycle assessment. It will be a restricted life cycle assessment. We will choose among the different options of life cycle assessment those ones that are the most important for achieving the goal of the European Commission. When I'm saying we, I'm not speaking now of GRC, but speaking for the European Commission because there is nobody else of the Commission, okay? And now the date between now, December, and maybe a little bit beyond, because you know we are changing the Commission, we are changing the whole frame to speak to each other, so maybe there are a little bit of a delay, but the procedure, the trilogue, is already gone towards all the phases, so we are almost ready to publish it. Okay?
Thank you. I think we had another question, yes?
Yes, my name is Jazar Daoudi from the Swedish Energy Agency, and I have a question to you, Pietro. Again, I think you answered my question partly, but still need to get a little bit more explanation from you regarding the low carbon hydrogen. You said that it will be defined soon. In the gas market directive, there is some definition for it with the threshold and the comparator, but we really don't understand the connection to life cycle analysis. What do we mean with low carbon hydrogen? Because we, at least in Sweden, we have biofuels, and there is interest for reforming biofuels and producing hydrogen. Is it going to be renewable hydrogen, or we look into the life cycle analysis, including the whatever, the transportation of the biofuel from production site to the end use, and then it might be transportation, which includes some CO2 emissions. So please help me to understand what is low carbon hydrogen.
I can only promise that I will try to help you as soon as the new frame for low carbon gases is coming. Don't refer to the old one. I agree. It doesn't give you any answer. There will be this new piece of legislation. Immediately after, everyone will get angry, confused. There will be a lot of discussion. Industry will say that we are killing the business. Research and NGO will tell us that we are not enough ambitious. And it's a dynamic that we know already. So I would not like to anticipate this beautiful moment of the European Commission legislation life, also because I do not know the details. Part of the GRC is helping, and I'm in line with them, is helping the policymaker, which is the service DG Ener, to discuss with the Parliament and the Council. But you know that we are under embargo at the moment. And even if I would know, I have the answer, it will not be the final answer. So please keep in contact, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Unless there are no other questions, as we're approaching a close of the panel, maybe to cap it off, I'll give you the opportunity to provide some closing remarks. We have discussed sustainability quite a lot. We've mentioned needing replacements for fluorinated components, for mitigating releases of hydrogen in the atmosphere. Maybe each one of you could, very briefly in 1 or 2 minutes, maybe explore also other PNR, pre-normative research priorities that should be considered in the next months and years, starting with you, Nils.
So I'm afraid I'll come back to the PFAS, actually. I think that's really a topic which needs further research, as I mentioned in my introductory remarks as well, to be able to conduct the representative sampling and analysis of fuel cells and water electrolysis systems to evaluate the PFAS potential. I think that's really important. And from my understanding, I understand that there will also be calls to that effect in the future, could be. And I think that's really pertinent at present.
If I may continue.
Yes.
So from my perspective and what I understand from the field where I come from, we have been working on the measuring and standardization for flow metering and quality of hydrogen in gaseous phase for the vehicle, for the PEM fuel cells. But I think it's now time to do really some serious pre-normative research for the liquefied hydrogen, and not only pre-normative research, more deep research on liquefied hydrogen and other hydrogen carriers and liquid carriers, because those can really help in putting forward the market of hydrogen.
Thank you, Annarita. Final words for you, Pietro.
It will not be one word. First, let's broaden. This session was on pre-normative research and how to make it better. Let me say that the Clean Hydrogen Partnership has been an incredible enabler to accelerate the path from science to the standardization. And they are demonstrating more and more the capacity to shorten the period from science to putting science into standard. Their call are getting always better to link and to require from the project an involvement in standardization. And I see the incredible flexibility because there are recent projects on PFAS and sustainability that are really triggered by new driver from the policy dimension. So I think that these people are doing an incredible work. Now, what I would, my dream for improving further, data. We need normative research, we need data, and a small project of 3 million dedicated to one specific gap and priority will not be able to produce all the data necessary to make a standard robust. So the first message is to industry, get looser, get locker. The pre-normative research is usually also competitive. So you have a lot of data that could help us. The second message is to those among in the audience that are participating to other type of collaborative projects. Everything that is going in direction of assessing your product, assessing your project, is also pre-normative research. Methodology and data that is reinforcing the methodology is already pre-normative research. So in the frame of the joint undertaking, don't think that you are another pillar and don't you have anything to do on pre-normative. Please, let's speak together with the pre-normative area that not for nothing is called an horizontal cross-cutting area. So we need the data.
Thank you very much, Pietro. On this, I think we can all thank our three speakers today, as well as Alberto, for the nice introduction. Thank you to all of you. Don't forget to attend also the other panel discussions happening during the day, and also the famous awards ceremony at the end of the afternoon, as well as the Young Researchers Awards, and the even more famous Clean Hydrogen reception to cap off the day. Do you wish to add anything, Alberto?
No, just thank you, everybody, and I just wanted to make you thanks a lot for the nice words. I think it's the success of everyone. The beauty of this type of program is that we involve industry, research, and the Commission. Is the success of everyone, not just the Program Office. In that sense, I just wanted to highlight that from the Program Office and the Clean Hydrogen EU, representing, let's say, industry, research, and Commission, we have supported, we are supporting, and we will continue supporting pre-normative research in order to have a suitable and enabling framework for these technologies. That's all from my side. Thank you very much. And as Luis mentioned, stay tuned. Next session, it's in a few minutes. So thank you very much, and see you around.